we're just getting started with our first podcast style meet and greet here for Illuminacrum Studio Arts LLC. My name is Sarah Cantwell. I am the owner and lead writer, and I'm going to throw it to John, who is our operations manager and I believe our fancy music guy.
Yeah, when we get there, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm John DeFore, operations, music, and then also, I guess, a writer as well,
Yes.
since we're going to be talking about that here shortly. But yeah,
Yeah.
first episode for this Creative Current podcast that we're going to start here for Illuminacrum. So pretty excited. We're going to talk about, I guess, about my background a little bit. Yeah.
Yes.
Some zombies hanging out back there. So
yeah. I didn't do zombies, but I did get all my TTRPGs and stuff right behind me. So yay. And then my murderous black cat over in the corner sleeping peacefully.
Yeah.
Mavis Murder Mittens will be joining us for most of these. Hopefully sleeping, because most of the time if she's not, she will be terrorizing my keyboard. She likes to be the center of attention. So I think just very briefly, we want to touch a little bit on just what Illuminacrum is. This is the brainchild of a crew of about 6 people that we have been dying to get off the ground. And finally, during the pandemic, we just said, forget it. We're all really stressed. We want to do something creative. So we made Illuminacrum Studio Arts, and we are just a bunch of people who like to play games. We play video games. We play TTRPGs. We write stories. We make art. We make music. And it's finally happening where we have a place to sort of bring all of that together. And today we're going to talk about how to survive zombies if you're a zero, which I'm super excited about. And obviously John, with his background, is also very excited.
Well, yeah. This has been a great idea, right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting Illuminacrum going, but we've finally been able to have that coalesce into something tangible with our first release. So How to Survive Zombies If You're a Zero is our first TTRPG that we've published. Literally wrapping up, I think, the print version of the book today.
Yes. Yeah.
The
It's going
PDF's
off.
out. Yeah, but we're getting the book ready, and we're very excited to be sharing a lot more about that game. It's been a lot of fun and work designing and play testing and all that. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah. And so before we dive into that one, I just want to talk really briefly, introduce, not just who we are, but a little bit about the stuff that we really like to. I'll kick it off with, I have an extensive background in writing, mostly poetry and fiction. I went to Vermont College of Fine Arts. So if you are my fellow VCFA people listening to this, hello, I miss you all, and I can't wait to get back out there at some point. I am also a adjunct instructor. I teach writing and communication classes. I'm a giant nerd who loves TTRPGs, so I also DM, or ZM, as we will get to in a few minutes here. Anything reading and writing related, anything social gaming kind of vibes going on. So, and John, I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah. So I guess I've also had a huge background in gaming, starting with a Nintendo, playing that, beating The Legend of Zelda with my parents at 5 or 6. Been gaming a long time. And I also have a musical background as well. I did go to school for music. For a while, I worked as an instructor at a local university, ran my own small teaching company for a bit, gigged with a lot of different bands, different groups. But in that time, still played a lot of games, loved playing video games for a while, and then started getting into TTRPGs probably about 10 years ago. It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah.
And currently I'm sort of managing an axe throwing venue. So throw that in there, I guess. But yeah, just a lot of music. Loved old school video game music. That was a big part of those games as well. So coming in with Illuminacrum, when we can start working on maybe more video game oriented projects, I'm excited to do music for that. And but right now really enjoying the TTRPG experience, uh, and again, what we've been doing.
Yeah, and you probably heard a good example of some of John's work as you were tuning into the podcast, because he is writing both the intro and outro and anything in between.
Yep.
Also be paying attention for his amazing little funny commercial breaks that we're gonna have in here. I haven't heard all of them yet, but I'm very excited. I think that's another thing that we sort of latched onto right away, is that both of us have a sense of humor. I'm a little bit more flat affect, but we definitely have like a very campy sense of humor that we like
Yeah.
to use as we go through here. And you'll see that in the book too. So yeah, I think we'll just switch gears now and start talking about the game. I know
Yeah.
we've both been kind of chomping at the bit to be able to sit down and actually explain to people like what the process was, what was our inspiration. So we'll dive back and forth onto those things too. And I think I'll just start with the story that kind of generated all of this, which to
Yeah.
me is the weirdest thing. Um,
Go for it.
I think I was just watching some kind of horror show, probably something B-rated. I don't really like horror. I'm going to put that out here in the beginning, because I don't know how we managed to write this whole game and have it be it's just a horror romp, if you will, into a bunch of zombie tropes. But I went to bed after watching something scary and had a fever dream in the middle of the night, and I just said, what if they were zeros? And it was almost like I was playing TTRPGs, I've been DMing, and then I watched this horror and they got mixed up while I was sleeping. And we wound up with the zero system, which, John and I have elaborated on quite significantly since I've had the little fever dream, but it's there. And I had this idea for how do we make a TTRPG system that's balanced around zero. And I told John about it, and away we went. So maybe John, you want to tell him about like my crazy ness of explaining this to you and you being like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the idea was we've played a lot of TTRPGs where you're this big epic hero. Your character never dies. They're always succeeding. It's like in the real world, how would that go down in a zombie apocalypse? And I think most people would get eaten. So,
Mm-hmm.
so it made sense with the zero system that she wants to talk about. So, hence, how to survive zombies if you're a zero.
Mm-hmm.
It's this concept of you're just some person in this apocalypse trying to survive. So, when I saw the zero system, it was really cool because it does always balance to zero. Where if you want to play just straight zero, you can, no bonuses here or there. But if you want to specialize a little bit, you can choose to bump a couple of your stats up. Um, but there is the trade-off of that means you're not going to be good at something else. So, and I like that sort of that balance where there's something inherently problematic if you try to specialize. You're not going to be, and I think that represents real life pretty well. If you spend
Yeah.
all your time, getting buff in the gym versus reading books, right? Maybe your strength, your force is going to be real high, but maybe not your, any sort of intelligence, any sort of smarts. And it creates that good tension where you can play to your strengths, but eventually something is going to require that bad stat that you have. And you can avoid it as much as you can, but when that happens, it's very like a
Mm-hmm.
little tense on this roll. But I really liked it. And initially when Sarah brought this, she had a sort of a vague idea of a
Yeah.
dice system, just sort of a general concept, thinking in percentages. And I kind of took that and ran with it, based on, again, we've played a bunch of different games. So it was kind of always like, this is cool. I like how this game does it, but it's not quite what I was thinking. And I like how this game does it, but it's not quite how I was thinking. So I was able to kind of combine all these ideas together to find what we could do, where a lot of games, if you succeed at something, it's pretty much it. Like maybe you crit, And then if you fail at something, again, maybe you crit fail if people do that, but it's just the check. But it's like, well, what if there's some games out there that, like Powered by the Apocalypse does it, where if you roll decently, you get what you want, but there's sort of that cost. But it's like, can we make it the other way where you can succeed really well too? So by putting this D10 system in is what we did. We said, well, we're going to try it with a D10 and make all the bonuses really small. It makes it easier to understand and interpret on the fly, so it doesn't bog down the story that you're telling. But it helps, create something narrative where if you're really good at something, anyone could make this jump, but because you jump so well, like there's some extra bonus you can get with that. So the better you do, more things narratively can happen well for you. But again, same thing in the opposite, where if you're bad at something, yeah, everyone might miss that jump, but if you're really clumsy, maybe you miss that jump, and when you fall, you roll your ankle or something. So there's all these narrative ways to make things kind of go awry. And I think in dealing with that and getting creative around those things, it makes for a really fun storytelling experience.
Yeah.
So with the zero system, because the bonuses were so small, the D10 made sense like that. And every little point, it's only like maybe you get a +1 here or there, but I mean, that's 10% on a D10. So it's
Yeah.
not insignificant by any way.
No, and the smaller numbers too. I mean, I think that was one of our central focuses early on was, can we make a game that isn't too unwieldy for players who are new to playing TTRPGs? I mean, I think that's just a state of fact with the whole field right now, is that we have got an influx of lots and lots of new players. And yeah, a lot of that is due to Dungeons and Dragons, but there's always been a like an indie press kind of feel in the TTRPG industry, right? It is a community of artists and things like that. When you think about what it takes to pull a TTRPG together and to, package it in a way and make it something that is playable by lots of people, right? We wanted to make sure that it was something where we could hand you a book, we could hand you a character sheet. As a matter of fact, we have pre-made characters because, we through all of our play testing, we found that there were some archetypes that sort of showed up that we wanted to make sure, hey, cool. If you got a player that's not comfortable with, coming up with their own stats, here's some pre-made ones to have. Also, you can use these pre-mades for NPCs that are going to come up in the game. So I love the idea that we took what I feel like is a pretty robust system for only being a D10 system and only operating around a 0, and made it into something where, like, yeah, those little numbers really count. And I think what I loved about us talking about the narrative successes and failures, and there's some mechanical successes and failures in there too, which that's part of the stuff we had to develop later. But what I loved about the success and failure system is that it was pretty intuitive to use, and that it was a really kind of neat way to keep the story momentum going for players who maybe don't understand a lot about how to, to play TTRPGs and do that sort of collaborative storytelling, right? It gave us a system that was easy to use and generative. So I love that.
Yeah. And like you said, it's, I think that we provided enough examples in the core rule book of like, so that essentially if you succeed and you succeed really well, you get breaks. So like a helpful break or a lucky break, those get better and better. And then with the other side of it, failures, there's complications. Yeah, it's good. There's complications. So there's bleak and grim complications. So those get worse and worse. And we've provided examples of that from narrative perspectives, from mechanical perspectives. So I think with that, it still gives newer people an idea on how to play that. But I think it gives a lot of flexibility as well to more veteran players to be extremely creative. And I know when I was playtesting games as the zombie master, the ZM, I oftentimes, when those complications would happen, I would ask players, like, what do you think would happen here? What how would this affect your character? And I liked that, having that back and forth, that again, that sort of whole narrative negotiation that is prevalent throughout this game. So I really enjoyed it, and I think it works well. And again, we tried to make it as open as possible, but not so open that you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You don't know. There's enough structure there.
Yeah, there's some guide rails.
Yeah, exactly.
What up? Nicky Bonks here as always. Do you love waffles but find that the crosshatch texture is just too rough on your little mouth? Well, you are not alone, my friend. This episode of the Creative Current podcast is sponsored by the orally weak people at the Waffle Iron. After many breakfasts filled with bloody mouths and bountiful tears, they set out to create a more peaceful way to start your morning. In the same way you use a regular iron to get the wrinkles out of your underwear, you can use the Waffle Iron to smooth those dastardly crosshatches of death out of your waffles for a more higher vibrational, pain-free kind of breakfast. Yeah, hold on here, wait a freaking minute. Smooth waffles. They are promoting smooth waffles. Well, yeah, what's wrong with that? What do you mean? Do you not see this, Kevin? Smooth waffles. I mean, it would make it easier on my mouth. Yeah, I get that, but smooth waffles. I'm not sure I really follow you. Aren't those just freaking pancakes? Like, why don't they just eat pancakes? Hey, they're our sponsor, and you shouldn't talk like that. Yeah, but why go out of your way to make waffles and then iron the texture out of them when you can just make pancakes? Look, Nicky, finish the ad read or you're not going to get the $13 I promised you. Whoa, big man in the control booth. Big man in the control booth. Okay, how about less control and more booth there, buddy, all right? Anyways, if you're dumb enough to make waffles that hurt your mouth, you can certainly waste your money on the Waffle Iron. Go to illuminacrum.com/thewaffleiron to see just how stupid you can be. Act now and they'll throw in a second the Waffle Iron for only 50% more money and only 100% more dumbness. You need the Waffle Iron because silky smooth waffles are apparently part of a complete breakfast. So get yours today for only God knows why.
And it is a game about zombies, if you're going to be fighting zombies. So the combat system is a little more detailed, but I think that serves it pretty well. But yeah, it's come together well with the narrative stuff to really, again, get that exchange of this, handing off this story, telling this story.
Yeah,
does it well.
And I sort of love that the feel of the breaks and complications system does roll into combat. Because you've got the chance to have an adrenaline rush in combat, right? Which sort of functions like a lucky break, right? Where all of a sudden you're starting to get lots of bonuses because you rolled several 10s. And if you take the right feat, you could roll 9s and 10s, up your chance by like 10% of being able to, crit hit on things. I believe that is our survivalist.
Yeah. Skirmisher.
Thank you.
Yeah. They're not feats. What
no,
are they?
Yes. They're wits. I'm so sorry. I'm preparing to DM some stuff this week. And so I went into Dungeons and Dragons mode, but we are not the wit system. Actually, this is probably a good segue into that. The wit system is probably one of my favorite systems, and I 100% bow down to John in this regard, because I might have been like, cool, here's the dice system, we're going to use d10s, we're going to call it 0, and obviously we've built on it from there, and ultimately I'm the one that said let's just call them wits. But John is the one who just was like, here's a place where we can have some fun and we can give the players the skills, and you're the one that suggested, hey, why doesn't this become our level up system, which has just been so genius, because it's a great way to customize your character that feels true to a zombie game, movie, you name it. The idea that certain people are just going to have a certain skill set to be able to, get in and do things, right? So whether it's crafting, whether it's scavenging for things, whether it's a fighting wit, right? And
planning things out.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
you can spread them out and gather more wits as you go, but that you're never 100% going to be good at everything. You're going to be good at some things and not good at others. So I thought the wit system was amazing for that. And if you got anything to add about those,
Yeah,
yeah,
part of it, again, using it as so let's just say wits. It's short for what it takes,
yeah,
but it's also, keep your wits about you. So they're very sort of narrow skills that you can take that give you small little bonuses or maybe unlock a small little specific ability. So for example, in one of our pre-mades, the parkour, right?
yeah.
They have maxed out nimble. They're good at jumping and climbing. So I made a wit called track and field. I tried to give them funny names too. I think it works pretty well because every time people read them, they laugh. So it's not just me that likes it.
No, I still laugh. I can't express to you guys how many times I have gone to edit this book and I get to one of our wit sections and I just start giggling because I'm like, I forgot that was there and it's funny.
Yeah. But anyways, that gives you a +1 bonus to jumping and climbing. So it makes you a little bit better at what you do. So there's that option. And then with the different pre-mades, the archetypes, there is sort of, some of them are more vertical, where that narrow thing you're good at, you can do better and better and better. An example of that is the medic build. There's a lot of wits about, giving first aid. So, being able to better apply first aid, crafting first aid items, things like that. So you could go vertical, but you could also go very horizontal. And there's certain characters like the mastermind is more horizontal, where they've picked up little things here and there to be better at things. They're not good in a straight up fight, but there's a wit that lets you sort of, let someone else take that attack in your stead. They're the ones that know, they can keep from getting lost. Just a lot of manipulating the environment. So that comes across a lot of different places in the game. Now, they're very narrow bonuses. They're small, so you're not going to be just amazing at everything. Like Sarah said, it's, how do you want to play this character, and how do you want to either dive super far into your strengths or possibly shore up some of the weaknesses. But again, this was sort of a necessity because, we can't, every time someone levels up, we can't just increase their stats because of the way it doesn't balance well with that 0 system with the D10. Because if on this D10, if you roll a 6 or higher, it's a pass. You succeed at what you're doing. 5 or lower is a fail. And the further away from the center you get, that's where those breaks and complications come into play.
Yeah, the big ones.
Yeah. So if someone all of a sudden has, a +6 to a stat, well, they can't fail. So there are certain ways you can stack it where you can choose to succeed at a cost, which is something we could talk about later, where you can't fail, but there's a cost associated with that. But it wouldn't have made any sense to do it a traditional way where you get more stats. And again, it lets you customize your exact character. In playtesting, I've seen that where I've got all these pre-mades, these archetypes that are very vertically stacked, and everyone just takes a horizontal stacking where I'm going to add, I'm going to be good at this little thing and then that little thing. Here's my one, in the environment style wit. Here's my fighting wit. Here's my crafting wit, and they just kind of like, hodgepodge together. But it goes along with their character's background, and it makes a lot of sense. And I think that's awesome. So I wanted to give as much customization as possible to build your character.
Yeah, and it led to this really organic sort of team building exercise that you have to do as you play the game, because you're not going to be good at everything. You might be really good at fighting. You might be really good at crafting, or you might be a really good medic, right? But that medic is going to need protection, somebody to watch their back. And so it's sort of automatically put people in certain positions where maybe you're not like a fighter setup, right? Maybe you're more like, for example, the judge has really high judgment, right? Maybe because they're the only ones that are really spec'd more towards being able to use weapons, right? That they have to fill the fighting role. Going through the game with the parkour was, first of all, hilarious because my husband would just scream parkour and throw himself off of buildings in the game, which was just, you know,
Always fun.
always fun, always fun. And it rarely went well for him because he wasn't spec'd quite the right way to do what he was trying to do. And he did not have wings. But having a parkour in the party meant that we would get access to things in the environment that we might otherwise not get, right? Like he could climb across or jump across things and help us sort of backfill a way across. And I don't know. I made mistakes right away. One of the first ones that I played was the planner. The planner is fantastic for board control, being able to tell people, go do this, go do that. Hey, I see the thing over here.
Help them out.
Yeah. And there's a function called making a plan in the game that they are brilliant at. I couldn't climb anything. I couldn't run away. I got lucky because the planner is so limited in fight style wise. We just like, no, the planner needs a gun because they're not going to make it if they don't have a gun. So that was the only thing I think that saved me in a couple of the things, was that ultimately I had one of the strongest weapons in the game with limited rounds. So it was like I had to choose very carefully when I used them. But I could help out if we had somebody who was the tank, right? They're not really looking around for things in the environment to work with, right? And even if they do, they're going to roll so poorly they probably don't see them. I mean, they might get lucky.
But they're busy fighting, busy defending. Like,
yes. So it's easier if the planner is just shouting, okay, go here, go there. And it led to some really dynamic gameplay that I don't think we would have achieved without the wit system. So I think when we talk about this game, we're really talking about where the wit system meets the zero system, and it creates that dynamic. And I feel like it's a realistic, right? When we're talking to zombies, it's not a fantasy game. We want to be in the nitty gritty. We want to be in like, if this really happened in the real world, what would it feel like? And I feel like that's what we achieved with this. And I think, I know one of the things we wanted to talk about is like, what are we the most proud of? And I think it's that synergy of parts that I'm most proud of. Made it an amazing game.
Yeah, for sure. Not to say that we won't have How to Survive Zombies if you're a Medieval Zero or anything like that.
Right.
There's potential things in the future, right? But yeah, it's our first goal was like, if things went down today or in the mid 90s, as some of our playtests took place, but just generally the present, modern era, how would this play out? And I think, it leads to really good team building once you understand how your roles fit together, what kind of character you're playing, how your strengths overlap well with other people's weaknesses. Like Sarah was mentioning, okay, the tank is just standing there attacking and defending. Well, she can see what's happening around him, can call out and help that person out so they can roll a little bit better on those things.
And then they can grab me when I'm about to fall off the edge of a building. Which also happens. So it's everybody's got their skills, and we need each other. And that wound up just
friends are good.
Awesome, because I feel like that's where most zombie movies go. Like if we don't work together, we're not going to make it. And that's actually really an interesting segue, because I am such a book and literature nerd. Thinking about the genre that is zombie books and film and games, and thinking about sort of like the existential questions that get asked. And we really wanted to add that feel in there too. So like we have a whole world building section where we're like, hey, these are some of the big problems that your players are probably going to run into. And it's not just zombies. It's never just zombies. It's always when things get bad, what do the other people around you do? So we have the jerks in there too. And you can use all the pre-builds and the environment. Yes. And the environment's working against you too. And those are all things that we ask the ZM to consider as they're building out their session for the night, which I just love. And it really does make you feel like you're like in that situation. which was surprising. And for as much as we joke and we've added little tidbits in, there's a really dark underbelly to doing a zombie game that I didn't want to lose that feel as we made the game. So
yeah, we definitely again added a lot of our humor into things because that's who we are. So it just like, why wouldn't we do that? So you can definitely play it that way. But if you want to take it in a more serious tone, all those things still work. You know, maybe change the name of some of the wits to
yeah.
so you're not laughing at them the whole time. But yeah, you can, and that's what's great too is we tried to give enough guidance again to be able to play the game, but leave it open enough that people can kind of decide on those settings and how they want it to be. You know, if as the ZM, if you're building, you know, either a one-shot session or maybe a longer term campaign, you know, survival stories, I think we're trying to call it. Yeah. You know, it's the question of, do I want my players to feel like this is an action zombie movie where they're just constantly slaying hordes and hordes of zombies and, you know, people are going to die because they're constantly fighting, they're going to get eaten, whatever. Or do I want this to be how most, you know, dramatic zombie shows turn out, where it's more working against other people and there's zombies in the background. You know, that's like The Walking Dead turned into very much that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, so it's dealing with the drama of that. Or again, do you just want it to be a fun little thing where people die and they die in funny ways, and then you make a new character and you start over again? So it can really kind of go down any of those paths, however you want to play it and however your players want to play it. So I'm really happy with the way that turned out as well.
Yeah, I found for me, just going in, because I've ZM'd not as much as you have. My goodness, the playtesting you have done, sir. Thank you for your service.
It's January, and since May.
Yeah. But I think that, you know, just in my consideration as a ZM, thinking about, you know, what kind of feel I'm going for. And again, this is why in the book, we like point to TV Tropes is an amazing website, so tvtropes.org, to go in and just kind of poke around, because the other thing that we didn't want to lock down, aside from just the general tone, is like, what specifically is what are the zombies, right? Like, is this a plague? Are they like The Walking Dead, where they start getting smarter? Sorry for the spoilers. Or are they like The Last of Us, where it's like a biochemical mutation kind of thing, you know? And we didn't want to label any of that stuff. We wanted to make sure that we made mechanics where the ZM could be like, this is my version of a zombie apocalypse, and this is how I'm gonna run it. And so, you know, I've really enjoyed that. There's a few tropes that go over top of almost all zombie games, which is infection, right? So we made an infection mechanic. But we didn't say what caused that infection, just that it's an infection. And, you know, when the infection gets triggered is really up to the ZM. We usually play it with anytime you get bit. But what if, you know, what if it's an environmental contagion or something like that, where you run into it?
You need water, you fish it out of a lake that lake's infected with whatever. Yeah, you could get infected that way. So
yeah.
Yep. So it's great. And I should say to anyone listening about this game, if what we said in stone doesn't work for you, just do whatever else you want to do with it. You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
we're not like, hey, you're playing our game the wrong way. It's you know, it's very much like, okay, cool. Yeah. Take it and run with it. Make it your own.
Yeah. Sure. Come on this journey with us, because we've just like, again, I do not like horror, and I surprisingly had a great time playing this game, ZMing this game. You know, we did put safety materials in the front of the book for reference. You know, you want to make sure that you're making sure that all of your players are, especially if you're going to play this with a younger group, right? You want to make sure it's age appropriate. And so there's some great ideas for that. Yeah. Maybe a little less vitriol. But yeah, it was really fun to build a space for other people to come in and play in. And I feel like heading back to who we are as Illuminacrum, that's really what we want. I feel like that's the core of everything we do. We want to build space for other people to come in and tell stories.
Yeah.
And I think that's my favorite thing about it. So we don't own it in the end. Yeah, we're gonna sell you the book. Okay. But really that's just an ends to a means so we can make you more books, right? Like this is we have day jobs, but we love this. So
yeah. No, for sure.
Yo, Nikki Bonks here. This episode of the Creative Current podcast is sponsored by Any Number Dice. D20, D6, D100, D4. So many dice, so inconvenient. That's why the fine folks at Gamer Nerd Labs came up with the Any Number Dice. One die to rule them all. One die for any job. This die is the one and only. It's it's just one die. But anyways, you roll it and it'll give you any number you need in any range. That's right, any number in any range. I mean, not really, but let's face it, you've been playing online since the pandemic hit, and you've been getting all fudge pops in those rolls anyways.
Not everyone cheats like you, Nikki.
Yo, shut up, Kevin, I'm working here. Anyways, every side of the Any Number Dice is just a smirking little cheaty face, like that so-called friend of yours. You know the one, with that cheeky little wink. We got freaking producer Kevin here, what a jerk. So you just roll the die and pick whatever number you need, like you've been doing anyways, you cheating little cheaty face Kevin.
What?
Nothing, Kevin. The Any Number Dice. It works for acrobatics checks, initiative checks, great sword attacks, mediocre sword attacks, nerf sword attacks, S-word attacks, and constipation saving throws. The Any Number Dice, get yours today. Only $29.99 for a set of 7 Any Number Dice. Act now, and they'll upgrade you to the exclusive Shapes and Sizes pack, where all 7 of the Any Number Dice are cut into different designs. Like a cube. And there's the pyramid one. There's the 2 pyramids that are touching butts. Yeah, that's really cute. Then there's like a sparkly die with probably 20 sides. The increasingly rare die of 10 faces and more. So go head on over to illuminacrum.com/anynumberdice and start staying nerdy while rolling dirty. Yeah, I think that went pretty well. Huh? No, we're not still on. You idiot. Idiot producer Kevin with your dumb face. No. What? Son of a bitch.
the questions we had was about challenges building the game. I feel like for us, we are a very small company. And for this project in particular, it was really just me and John. And so there have been, so many nights where John and I are just like talking about, well, what if we did this? Or what if we did this? And then making sure that those edits made it into the book and then playtesting them and doing the cyclical motion. And I honestly, for just being the two of us, and we've never actually made a TTRPG before, I think the span of 8 to 10 months has been fantastic. I feel like if we made this our full-time job, we could definitely get these done a lot faster. And I know that you are already working on an amazing expansion to this original core book. And I've got one in mind as well. And so we're both going to tackle like different aspects and build out elements of the world, give you guys some new mechanics to play with for urban areas and rural areas. You're talking about different weapons and things like that. So that's stuff to come. But really, I think if we're talking about the challenges, it has just been getting this darn book to print. And I think that is every publisher under the sun is just like, oh God. Because you have to, the rounds of revision that you have to do and the amount of playtesting that you have to do before you can even start doing any of that revision work. Like there was so much stuff that John had to foreground before I could even take the copy and get to editing and locking some stuff down. So I think that was for me the most challenging part.
Yeah, exploring all the options without taking too much time to explore all the options. Because there was a point where I got kind of just caught up in all that, the nitty gritty of all the mechanics and the rules, and just trying to like, well, what if we did this? What if we tried it this way? And trying to test those. And eventually we had to kind of Sarah kind of snapped me out of it. But mostly just to say, hey, what did we decide when we first started making this? We wanted it to be something that was not so mechanics heavy. We have to have enough of a structure, but we don't want to do that, at least especially not in the core rule book.
Mhm.
If we release an expansion later on that has a certain campaign that goes with it, that has more involved mechanics, well, we can release those mechanics with that expansion. And if people want to use them for that expansion, they can. If they want to use them in the main game, they can, or they don't have to. But like, let's just hold on, time out. Let's look at what we've got. I think this is good enough. Like, we don't want to have this, turn this into a 700-page book of number crunching. So
Yep.
That was the biggest challenge, was kind of sorting all those out, testing them, but not being able to test every single permutation. So kind of trying to group those up and just say, hey, no, we tested this. If this doesn't work, I don't think going deeper down that rabbit hole is going to work.
Right.
So, and it was just sorting that out, really, was the big thing.
I have to say, there were some things that I wanted to make more complicated than they were as well. Like, I know, for example, the crafting system, I was like, oh, I want a really robust crafting system. And ultimately we were like, no, just make it a dice roll and just call it a day. And that's something we might see more of later, right? We might see a broader crafting system. Yeah,
there's a few things in there like that, or working with building shelters, working with vehicles. We can explore that more in depth, but we didn't think in the end it was really necessary. There's roles on how to check for durability and things like that, and making repairs. So just use those rules, and however you want to in depth do that on your own, by all means go for it. But like I said, eventually when we release this maybe urban set survival story, this is going to be at the beginning of the apocalypse, so a lot of cars are still available, but you got to maintain them. So we might have more vehicle things, whereas we get out into a more rural setting, now it's going to be gathering, building shelters, things like that. So we can kind of take a more in-depth look with those as we go, but it's really only going to be coming about because that's where the story goes. Ultimately, that's what we wanted to do, is still focus on the story, the narrative, and any mechanics that come from that. That's great, but it's not, we're not making it just to make more rules.
Yeah, and that was a really hard decision to make too, was where are we putting too much in that might not even be used by a ZM that picks this book up, right? Like, if we've got the basic, like, here's what the damage would be, here's some examples, cool, we can leave it at that, because we wanted to make these massive lists of things. And in reality, the ZM may not use any of that. They may already be using the rules we constructed so that they could make custom things. And I think that was really important for this core rule book, right? Was just build a robust sort of core to be able to use for building all of the really specific things that you want for your game. And then moving on to our expansions that we want to do, right? We're going to dive in and we're really going to explore like cool ideas that we want to, add to storytelling. So as we move through an urban environment, like what's happening there? Who are the players that are involved, right? And what kind of things are we going to run into in that environment for that particular story? As just a way to sort of unfurl into those great big lists of things that we wanted. I mean, ultimately, we could wind up with a wiki's worth of stuff, but if it's not stuff people are going to use for every individual game, we're not going to invest in it just yet.
Yeah, no, for sure. So part of it was definitely that, where, this is an urban environment, so we're not going to run into any bears. Rural environment, maybe we should start thinking about wildlife and all that stuff. So 100%. And then other parts were other systems where we were able to sort of streamline different systems into one thing. I think the biggest one was fatigue. So there's sort of a second health track in fatigue, where the main one is toughness. And fatigue can be healed, just, rested up, just like toughness. But it's also a system for the ZM can kind of play with those fatigue points as well. But initially there was hallucinations, there was paranoia, there was all this stuff, all these different things to keep track of. And it was just too complicated, but we were able to sort of take it all together and just kind of funnel it through that fatigue system. And now those are all options available to the ZM and the players, even if they want.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. And what I sort of loved is, again, I know John was like, I made things really complicated. I'm like, oh no, I had my fair share of making things too complicated, because we had this whole paranoia and hallucination system. And then we was like, no, just do the fatigue, and we wound up doing the hallucination just kind of was a result of spending fatigue points instead of being its own system. So, right. That's one of the things I think we also want to talk about is like, what are the things that didn't make it and why? And I think ultimately, John and I just decided that everything should be in service of making it easy for the player, making it easy for somebody to come in and pick this game up and just be able to run with it. We also didn't want language. Yeah, not interrupt the story for sure. But we didn't want language that was really heavy-handed either. We wanted language that they could pick up quickly, like fatigue, you're tired, right? Yeah, that's a whole system. Toughness. Yeah. That's depleted. That's your ability to, exist in this world. I wanted to address something that I think was really important to address, because there's this very big conversation about AI in the arts community. And so I really wanted to make sure that we sort of talk about, yes, the art for this book was mostly made with Midjourney, mostly because at the moment it's just John and I, and we are not artists. There are 3 other people in this crew that are all artists in some way, shape, or form. We've got an environmental artist, we've got a character artist, we've got another Foley and music expert, and then we've got a coder for future projects we'll talk about some other time. But get excited, because we got cool stuff coming, I promise.
But it's a matter of budget. Either that's monetary or mostly time-based. So like, while on a philosophical level, I'm not thrilled about using AI art. It was literally the only way we would even be able to make this happen. So my hope is that going forward, if this is successful, we can go forward and start working with our internal artists or other external artists and do that way. That being said, I know Sarah pumped 1 million lines of codes into Midjourney to get the results. God, yeah. So
I will say,
not to undermine her effort on this one, because that's a lot of work that went down.
Yeah, it was fun to be able to play with that. And I as a professor of English communication, like I have to sort of understand and explain AI and its capabilities to my students. So like I know a bit about AI, and I promise you, like it is not our intention to ultimately use that, and for a number of reasons. One of them being, like, just as we were using the Midjourney program, it went through a series of updates, and the key phrases we were using before, suddenly the art looked completely different and it changed. So you're going to notice like a wide like birth of art styles in the book. Not that the images aren't cool, but I would really like to have something, more consistent going forward, right? Lock down the color schema, lock down the art style. And that's really only possible with actual artists. Also, hands having 5 fingers on them is really good. Most AI can't do that yet. So like some of the art you'll see, I've either cut the hand off or, zombies was kind of cool, because if it looked like the person was melting, well, it's a zombie that's melting. So be it. I felt it sort of our due diligence to make sure we have addressed that we don't intend to always move forward with AI art. I find AI is a great starting place for things. Clearly, this is our first project. We are at a beginning. Eventually, we're going to move past this. So, and I think I'm going to kick it off to you, John. I think a little bit to talk about some of the things coming ahead in the future.
Oh yeah, for this game specifically.
Yeah, let's start with there, and then we can sort of nod to things as an outro.
Sure. As mentioned in the beginning, getting the book finally published. It's about to be sent off to the publisher so that we can get our review copy, make sure everything's good. So that could be anywhere from 2 weeks to 2 months, right? Depending on how this goes. But so that's coming out. I did want to work on a ZM screen because I thought I always like the screens that were designed out. It's pretty cool. So there's that. We're also want to start making some more videos talking about the game, talking about the pre-mades, talking about some of the systems. So you can expect that. And then eventually we do have, as alluded to by Sarah, some different survival stories, some campaigns, some pre-written adventures. Because currently in the core rulebook, anyone that does get that will have access to Ranger Station Reprieve. It's a one-shot that I put together that was pretty fun. And if you want, you can always go to our website, or it's probably on our YouTube as well, and see us play through that.
It was very fun.
Yeah, but that's in there available to get people started. But I'd like to release an actual full module, pre-written, adventure or survival story for this setting where we're going to be in a city. I've play tested it initially on a basic level, then it went pretty well with our local playtest group here, and then it was good. We were considering maybe releasing that with the book, but it was going to take a lot more work. So we said, let's postpone it. Let's expand on it. Let's make it a really big, thriving, environment in the city, so we can introduce, a really good, big, grand story. And then also possibly some more mechanics that will go along with that.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that because I've been privy to some of the stories coming out of your lovely testing group, which, by the way, I also want to just take a second to shout out to. I mean, it's not just on John and I doing all of this. John's got a full group down where he's at, and I mostly do my stuff online. But we are on our Discord server. We're playing this game. I'm in the middle of trying to get a fuller campaign going so that maybe we have a sample campaign for everybody to watch. And I just have to say, we've gotten such great feedback and we've got to play with such great people. And I feel like that's just one more bonus, right? Like this game really feels like it came out of a community, which is just chef's kiss.
Yeah, for sure. And a community of a very diverse group of players. So my local group, mostly all new, on Discord, of a wide variety. And what I found was playing with people that are veterans of the TTRPG space, they did things how I thought they were going to do, right? And playing with new players, completely different. But it all worked out and everyone always had fun with it. And even mixed groups of veterans versus newer players. That was the big thing, that mixed groups we had a really good time with mixed groups. Because a lot of times in certain ones, it can be hit or miss that way, where some, veteran players are waiting for the new player to make the decision but they don't know because there's a million mechanics. So, then they start to offer advice, but it's not, now people are butting heads. So it's not good.
Right.
But with this mixed group, everybody had a great time with it. And that was really awesome to see. So yeah, it was a great time through all this testing, and it led to some great moments. And I'm looking forward to more, especially if we can get this long-term campaign going.
Yeah. And my we didn't design it as a family game, right? But my nephews want to play now, and it's I'm excited, kind of looking forward to playing this with them too. They're older, they're not like littles, but it's kind of interesting that they're like, this is cool, Auntie made a game, we're gonna check it out now.
My nephew as well. So
yes, that's right. I think your whole family just put you on the spot and played the video, right?
Yeah. got a nice text. That was my niece and nephew and sister.
Yeah.
I got a text of them when it came out and the PDF came out. They got it, and then they also had our first campaign video that you can find on the website.
Yep.
That Ranger Station Reprieve on the TV. It was pretty great.
Yeah. So I think we're kind of coming down to the end of this hour. And is there anything else that we might have skipped, John, that you want to get to?
I don't know. Is there any sort of key takeaway that you kind of got through this whole process as far as like creating a game, designing a game?
Yeah, so most of my publishing experience has been through more traditional publishing. So I write a lot of poetry and I write fiction and I send them out to magazines and publishing houses and things like that. And I've had the amazing luck to have worked with some really great publishing people. And I think for me, I was coming into this thinking I'm just going to use a lot of those skills. It's so different. It is just so different. But it has been great to see the overlap, great to see how the communities are very different. Because poets and TTRPG people, there's a lot of overlap, but there are things that sort of set them apart. Which feels like such a duh, but it was surprising to me because I know so many poets who also play video games and also play TTRPGs and things like that. So it was interesting to sort of get that. And I think just out of the overall production process, what I really learned out of all this was that be flexible, be flexible, and do not try to like dictate where this road is going to go, because we had to backtrack and rethink everything. I'm going to say like 4 or 5 times at least, where we had to just like stop for a night and go, is this really working? And thinking about our audience and stuff like that. So having the playtesters as we went along through the whole production process was the best thing in the world, right? We got amazing feedback from them almost instantly.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And like, me typing up a 6-page document about the system and then going, nah. Yeah. So for sure. And I think from my background is much more of the mathy kind of crunchy mindset. My biggest takeaway was in the narrative, learning how to be a better storyteller. And just and this something like I never really noticed. I always thought, watching, YouTube videos of different, like Critical Role or things like that. Just seeing people describe things, just like, oh, that's cool. And then I would describe things and it was not that cool. So, but through this process of I've mostly been a player. So being in the ZM seat and learning how to describe things better from a narrative perspective and really build that world that a player can visualize. Has been super helpful for me, and I know it's going to be extremely beneficial going forward into the actual module creation. So that was my biggest takeaway, I think.
Yeah, and I'm very excited about that. And I really feel like that learning process that we both went through trying to do that, because I was not the numbers crunchy one. Like I came up, sure, we'll balance everything to 0. Let's make it a D10. Those were the biggest decisions I think I made. And then you were able to like go through and actually like map out all of the math. Like I remember you sending me the percentile chart and I'm just going, oh, that's so cool. I would have never thought to do that. Yeah. But it's because we had these really different backgrounds. We are both really committed to making the same kind of like game for people. And we were both learning a lot about this too, because I feel like all of the questions you were asking me about storytelling and stuff like that, those made it into the book. Like this is where a lot of our world building section came from, was us talking about like, okay, well, yeah, you're right. That's a really good question. And so I would just pass that on to not only people making other TTRPGs, but people who are playing TTRPGs. Like just ask questions, and have fun exploring something, right? And putting your stamp on it, because the most fun we had was sort of putting these limits on the world around us, right? Like, no, there's like 6 zombies. We can't go down by the river, So what does that mean if we need water? Well, now we got to get creative and every single role led to us being like, well, what do we imagine is there in the environment, right? So the hole that they step in and break their leg is not there until they do the bad roll. And then we have to be like, oh, well, what in the environment would really hurt them? Well, a hole, they trip, they fall, they broke their leg. There you go. It doesn't have to be quite that severe. But then you get into our injury system. So, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
well,
no, for sure.
Oh, yeah. No, go ahead.
No, that's all I got.
Okay.
I
um
had started on a thought and I was like, nah, I'm talking too much. So let's,
I think that's what's nice about this though, is that like we could both just kind of sit here and shoot well, I won't swear, but
Yeah.
we can both sit here and chat and just go. But I think
for
we
sure.
are now over the hour. We should probably, scale it back. I hope everybody got some great ideas from, what we talked about like where we're going and what we hope to accomplish, and maybe get a better understanding of the game. Again, mad shout out to John for so much playtesting work, and I've been over in the editing booth for forever, so we're trying to make sure it gets out a nice clean
Yeah.
copy, which is on its way. We're gonna be waiting
Almost
for
there.
proofs here.
Yep.
But yeah, thank you for coming along with us on this journey, and we'll have more Creative Current podcast style videos coming in the future, talking about other projects that we've got working on, having more jokes from John with our little commercial breaks I'm very excited about. Yeah, I think that's all I got. How are you doing, John?
Oh, I'm doing good. I think that all sounds great. And yeah, just so stay tuned. Again, more of the Creative Current podcast. The first few episodes is basically going to be about this game, because that's mostly what we've been doing. But eventually we can venture out into other Illuminacrum related items, and then other things we want to talk about just along the lines of creativity, things like that. And then the book will be out soon enough, the actual print book. If you're interested in just the PDF, it is available now. You can go to illuminacrum.com and check out our zombies page. It'll link you to DriveThruRPG, where you can purchase it. And then once we have the print books, those will be available as well. And then stay tuned for once we get this campaign going. So I'm excited for that, if you want to see more gameplay.
Awesome. Yes. So thank you. Yes, illuminacrum.com. Go there. Have fun. Be merry.
Sounds good.
Bye.
All right, take care.